You may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Or afternoon, rather. My apologies. Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
My name is Sikta Patmaik, Sikta-Patmaik.
And how are you currently employed?
I work as a forensic scientist at the Texas Department of Public Safety at a crime lab which is located in Houston, Texas.
And do you have a title, or would your title be just forensic scientist?
It's forensic scientist degree.
Okay. How long have you been employed with the DPS Crime Lab?
6 years now.
And what are your duties as part of your job in the DPS Crime Lab?
My duties involve visually examining items of evidence, perform chemical tests on stains that would have possible biological material, collect DNA from an item of evidence, collect those possible biological stain, prepare these samples for DNA analysis, perform DNA analysis, write reports, testify in court, and perform any other duties that are assigned to me in the lab.
And what kind of education did you need to acquire in order to be a forensic scientist for DPS?
I have a bachelor's degree in agriculture science from a university in India. Then I have a master's degree in biotechnology from Stephen F. Austin State University in Laredo, Texas. And I have a PhD in biochemistry from Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma.
Now, is the DPS Crime Lab, could you break down for the jury how many DPS Crime Labs actually are there throughout the state?
There are about 16 labs in different locations throughout the state of Texas.
And which crime lab do you work for?
I work for the Houston Crime Lab.
And is the Houston Crime Lab accredited?
Yes, it is.
Is this accrediting, what is the accrediting organization for the Houston Crime Lab?
So the Houston Crime Lab is accredited by Texas Forensic Science Commission and an accredited body known as ANAB, that stands for American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board.
And is that accrediting organization recognized by the Texas Forensic Science Commission?
Yes, they are.
Now, what exactly is accreditation?
To be accredited means to be assessed and evaluated by an external agency to make sure that the lab and their member follow certain guidelines and standards.
And is the accreditation recognized and accepted internationally?
Yes, they are.
Have you been proficiency tested in your specific discipline?
Yes.
Now, what is your discipline? Or I guess, what's your specialty? That'd be a better way to put it.
I perform DNA in our lab is divided into 3 parts. The first part is called the biology or the screening or forensic serology. So these words are interchangeable. Then the second part is called the DNA analysis or the analytical part. And the third part is called the DNA interpretation. So currently, I'm trained on all 3 of the parts.
And which of those 3 parts were you involved in with this specific case?
For this case, I was only involved on the first part, that was the biology of the screening.
And you have been proficiency tested in the biology part, correct?
Yes.
When was the last time you were proficiency tested?
Spring of 2025.
And what were the results?
I passed.
Are you licensed as a forensic analyst by the Texas Forensic Science Commission?
Yes.
What did licensing require?
So a licensing with Texas Forensic Science Commission requires you to have a degree, a bachelor's degree or a higher degree in one of the hard sciences. That includes either having a biology degree, chemistry degree, physics, or forensic science from an accredited university. Then you have to be employed by a lab that is recognized by the Texas Forensic Science Commission. Then you have to write an exam, a general forensic scientist and analyst exam, and you have to pass the exam. And once you pass it, you have to renew it every 2 years, and you have to fulfill certain continuing education criteria, which is about 24 hours of credit. And you can do so by attending seminars, conferences, reading literature.
And so, in addition to all of those things, would you consider that specialized training in this area, or have you taken additional specialized training?
When I joined Texas DPS, I was provided with specific training in the DNA part.
Now, have you testified in court before as an expert witness in biology?
Yes, I have.
On how many occasions?
13 times.
Does this include expert testimony in the courts of Galveston County?
This is my first testimony in Galveston.
What other counties have you testified in?
Fort Bend, Jefferson County, Orange County, Liberty, Montgomery, Walker County, Jasper.
Okay. Forgive me if I'm making you repeat yourself, but could you explain to the jury what a forensic biologist is?
The forensic biologists are scientists that use their knowledge in identifying and characterizing biological stains on items of evidence and trying to identify it, perform tests on it, and then see how they're related to the crime scene.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
So, Ms. Patmaik, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 458 and 459. Do you recognize them?
Is it okay if I reach into my...
Yes. Absolutely.
Your Honor, is it okay if I look at my notes?
Yes.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, so let me re-ask it a different way. When and where did you first see the State's exhibits before?
I have my initials and date for 5/6/2025 for both.
And I imagine the first place up would be in the crime lab?
That is correct, yes.
Could you explain to the jury a little bit how that happens? How do you normally get items of evidence for testing?
So when the agency brings in the item or evidence into the lab, it goes through our evidence department. So the evidence technician would then enter it into our computer system, which then generates a unique barcode and a unique case number, which is associated with any of the items that are included in the case. Once the case is received by the evidence technician, they then bring it up to the DNA vault, which requires a special access by 2 personnel with special codes to enter. So once this case was assigned to me, I, along with another analyst, we punched in our special code to go into the vault and to retrieve the evidence and bring it back to my bench area to perform analysis on.
Now, on those envelopes, is there a written line on States 458 and 459 sort of documenting who they were collected by?
Yes.
And who were they collected by?
For State Exhibit 458. It says buckle swab from Uriah Urick.
And may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
And does it say maybe which deputy actually collected the specific sample?
It says on here that it was collected by Yogibo, and there are numbers associated. It's 8334.
Okay. And on 459, does it appear to have been collected by that same person, Ms. Javiers?
Yes.
And would that be consistent if Ms. Javiers testified that she collected the buccal swabs from Uriah and Tom?
I won't be able to answer that
Okay,
question.
no
'Cause,
problem. So when you, how do you recognize these items here before you today?
From the unique case number that we have here on the label, is associated with the case number that I have on the case record here, and then also from my initials and date.
And did you conduct scientific analysis of these two items?
Yes, I did.
Did you inspect states 458 and 459 for the potential presence of biological material?
These are known samples from individuals. So for known samples, I do not perform any testing. All I do is I would just collect these and I would prepare them for DNA analysis, which means that I take a small portion of it, put it into a tube, and I would label it accordingly and put it in a place where it would go through the next steps of DNA analysis.
Okay. Could you sort of go into the process of that process that you just mentioned, the DNA collection and analysis?
So if it's a stain that I need to perform, if it's a question sample, so we have question samples and known samples. So if it's a question sample, then I would perform chemical tests on it, depending on what offense type it is. So for this case, I performed a chemical test for testing for presumptive blood, which meaning it gives me an idea that it's blood, but doesn't give me 100% confirmatory that it's blood. So in this case, I performed, in a lot of the samples, I performed the presumptive blood test. But for knowns, we do not perform any testing. We would just, a small portion of it would be cut into a tube and would be forwarded for DNA analysis.
And specifically for states 458 and 459, do those samples appear to have been tampered or altered with in any way?
I have it in my notes that they were properly sealed and not tampered with.
So is there any indication that prior to your conducting a scientific analysis on these items that they were tampered with?
No, not according to my notes.
All right, this time state would move to admit states 458 and 459. Is that your proposal? Vote, Judge.
States 458 and 459 will be admitted.
Ms. Patmaik, I would like to ask you now sort of about your, how you document your findings in your analysis. Do you generate any sort of reports as part of your process?
Yes, we generate at the end of my analysis, as I'm performing my testing, I'll be taking notes for my bench notes, and at the same time, at the end of my analysis, I would generate a report.
And what are you documenting in that report, generally speaking?
So the report generally would have if or any test that I performed and the results of the tests that I performed, then if the item was collected or was not, and if for items of clothing, we generally collect possible trace or apparent trace, which is basically collecting if there's any loose hair or any other debris, then we collect those for our trace department. So if the agency requests for a trace analysis, then we can forward those for trace analysis. So these generally would be the things that will be included in the reporting statements or in my report.
And did you generate a report for this case?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Patmaik, I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 495. Do you recognize it?
Appears to be a redacted copy of the report that I have here.
So let me ask you about that. What has been redacted from this specific exhibit?
The DNA portion of the reporting.
And is the DNA portion something that someone else can testify to?
That is correct.
So, just to make sure I'm clear, this individual report has your report findings and someone else's report findings.
That is correct.
And in this exhibit, the only thing that's been redacted is that other person's report findings.
Yes.
Other than those redactions made for evidentiary purposes, does it appear to have been tampered or altered with in any way?
No.
And does the unredacted portions truly and accurately reflect your report as originally submitted?
That's correct.
Your Honor, this time State would move to admit States 495 and tender to oppose counsel. Objections. No objection.
495 will be admitted.
My vote, Your Honor.
Yes.
So just to begin, let's start with the top. Is this that individual lab number that you were referencing earlier?
That's correct.
And what is that number?
It's HOU 2502-02194.
And as we kind of move down the top of page 1 here, we can see that it came from the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who are the suspects listed here?
King Tara Lynn and Urick Uriah Lee.
And who's listed as the victims?
King Tammy Sue.
And we have 2 eliminations. Who are those? What does it say?
Hodge Travis Wayne and Utah Terry.
Moving on down, we start seeing evidence, description, results, and analysis, interpretation. What are we looking at here? Can you explain this part of the report to the jury?
These are the items of evidence that I performed testing on and my reports or my results for that individual item.
And for this individual item, what item was being tested?
It was the purse from the victim's living room.
And as part of your role in the biology testing, what were your results?
My results were that presumptive testing for the presence of lead was positive. Then swabs were collected from this item and retained, and trace evidence was collected.
Moving on to page 2 of States 495. The top here, this sort of blacked out section, is that the redacted section that someone else will come in and testify to later?
That is correct.
And so as part of your role, starting with 01-02, what is that? What item is it?
I did not open that item, so I did not examine that item.
Why is that? Why would you not test that?
When an agency submits a lot of items for a homicide, our policy is to perform analysis on 10 items initially. But if the agency requests for more, then we can perform testing on the rest of the items, but it has to be first 10, then the next 10, and then the next 10, till the agency says no more testing is needed. But for this case, I did perform testing on more than 10 items, but I forwarded for DNA analysis, but there were just certain items that I did not perform testing on, and the agency never requested for further testing.
So if you send more than 10 items, who makes that call about what gets tested first and what would be need to resend later?
I reached out to the agency asking them what their priorities were in terms of what items need to be tested first. So they gave me a list of items that they wanted testing on first, and I went up on their recommendation.
So if an item wasn't tested, as we see here in 01-02, 01-03, 01-04, and 01-05, that would be the investigating agency telling you to have priority for other items first. Is that fair?
That is correct.
Okay. So moving on to 1-06-AA, what item is that? Let me ask this first. Was this item tested?
That is correct. Yes, it was tested.
And what were the results?
Results were that the presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive, and this item was collected and retained.
And then going down to the bottom of page 2 here, to 01-07-AA, was that item tested?
It was tested.
What were those results?
The presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. The item was collected and retained.
Moving on to page 3 of States 495, at the top of that page, we see an item 01-08-AA. Was that item tested?
Yes, it was tested.
And what were the results of that test?
Presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. The item was collected and retained.
I think I might have omitted this part here. Going back to 106AA, what is the item that was tested?
The item was swabs from stain on blue sheet from victim.
And on 1-07-AA, which item was that that got tested?
Swabs from stain on time sheet from victim.
And this most recent one I asked you about, 1-08-AA, what item was that?
The swabs from stain on white blanket from victim.
So moving on to 1-09-AA, what item was that?
Swabs from stain on light blue sheet from victim.
And was that item tested?
The item was tested.
What were the results?
The results were presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. This item was collected and retained.
And moving down the page, we see 1-10-AA. What item is that?
It was the item 0110AA.
Yes.
Swabs from stain on Yogibo from victim.
Do you know what a Yogibo is?
I do not.
Okay. Fair. I didn't. Okay. But was it tested?
It was tested.
And what were the results?
The results were presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. This item was collected and retained.
Moving on to 01-11-AA. What is that item?
It was the blood card from Tammy King.
And was it tested?
This item was tested.
What were the results?
This item or portion of this item was collected to be used as a non-reference sample.
Do you know how blood cards are collected and sent to the lab?
Usually get them from the MA's office, but I do not know anything other than that.
You don't know for sure in this case.
Yes.
On item 0-12-AA, what item is that?
The buccal swabs from Tara Lynn King.
And what did you do with that item?
This item or portion of this item was collected to be used as a non-reference sample.
Then moving on to page 4 of the state's exhibit, at the top here, we're looking at item 01-13-AA. What is that item?
The buccal swabs from Uriah Urick.
And what did you do with that item?
This item or portion of this item was collected to be used as a reference, non-reference sample.
We're kind of backtracking a little bit here. It looks, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 3 known reference samples come from the blood card of Tammy King, the buccal swab of Tara King, and the buccal swab of Uriah Urick.
Yes, and there is one other known sample as well.
Okay, is that later on in the report?
Yes.
We'll get you the
All right, we're going to take a quick bathroom break.
All rise for adjournment.
We'll start back up at 3. Dan, you may proceed.
Hey, Judge, may I reapproach the Elmer?
Yes, sir.
So kind of picking up from where we left off, we have kind of a different number here with 02-01. What item is this?
There's a pillow from Tara Lynn King's bedroom.
And what were the results of your testing on this item?
Presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. Samples were collected from the item and retained. Trace evidence was collected.
And moving down, we see another item, 03-01. What item is that?
Pillow from Tara Lynn King's bedroom.
And what were the results of your analysis?
Presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. Samples were collected from this item and retained. Trace evidence was collected.
Moving on to page 5 here, we have item 04-01. What item is that?
Pillow from Tara Lynn King's bedroom.
And what were the results of your testing?
Presumptive testing for the presence of blood was positive. Samples were collected from this item and retained. Trace evidence was collected.
And moving a little bit further down that list, or this page rather, we see 2 items here that haven't been redacted, 0601 and 0801. Starting with 0601, what is the item that was tested?
22 magazine with ammo, 8 cartridges from outside Tara Lynn King's bedroom.
And what did you do with that item?
Swabs were collected from this item and retained.
And now on towards the bottom of the screen here, what item is that?
0801?
Yes, ma'am.
1.22 long rifle caliber Smith Wesson model SW22 Victory semi-automatic pistol, serial number UEDO345 from Uriah Urick.
And what were the results of your analysis on that?
Presumptive testing for the presence of blood was negative. Swabs were collected from this item and retained.
Moving moving on to page 6 of your report here. We see a large section on the top of page 6 that's been redacted.
Yes.
And then moving up, we see item 14-01. What is that item?
Buckle swap from Travis Wayne Hodge.
And what was done with that item?
This item or portion of this item was collected to be used as a known reference sample.
And that would have been the 4th known sample that we discussed earlier.
Yes.
Were there any other items that were tested in your report?
These were all the items that were tested and are in my report.
And so is the rest of the report kind of just documenting who was involved in the analysis and other shopkeeping measures by DPS?
That is correct.
Pass away, Judge.
Okay.
No questions.
Thank you, ma'am. You may sit down. Call the next witness.
They would call Madison Blanche.
Read this here because she's going to use it.
Yes.